All right, welcome back in Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Here's the breaking news of the evening. We're taking a live look at Elizabeth, New Jersey right now, where U.S. port workers are being seen striking. We're hearing that this is beginning in states from Maine to Texas. Dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas began walking picket lines early Tuesday, and a strike over wages and automation that could reignite inflation and cause shortages of goods if it goes on more than a few weeks. Maritime analyst Sal Mercogliano is joining us. Sal, thanks for hopping on at this late hour. This is something that you were speaking with us about earlier on in the evening, and now it's official. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of knew the ILA was going to go out on strike. We saw some last-minute negotiations happening between them. The U.S. Maritime Alliance, which represents the shipping companies, the terminals, and some of the other port agents, were able to put a proposal together that looked really good. I mean, they came up from their initial offer up to 50% pay wages, increases over 6 years, talked about tripling the amount of money provided for retirement, and also more health care. However, the ILA has been adamant that they really wanted this strike. They want to raise issues regarding the absolute amount of money that the shipping companies have made. The 7 shipping companies that are on the United States Maritime Alliance board are all foreign owned, including one from the Chinese government, Chinese Overseas Shipping Company. And ILA wants to raise this issue, and they're doing it now. They want to get in the news cycle.
Why is this impacting ports on the East Coast, or are those the only ones that are affiliated with the ILA?
Yeah, it's East and Gulf Coast. So we got ports all the way from Boston down to Houston that are going to be impacted. On the West Coast, you have the ILWU, which we had that strike, and not a strike, but a labor negotiation with the Pacific Maritime Association. And here on the East and Gulf Coast, the ILA represents these workers. And we saw that not only is the ILA out on strike, but they got a sympathetic letter from the Teamsters Union coming out. And so what we're going to see right now is ships that are in the ports are stuck there. They won't be able to leave. This is going to impact mainly container ships and car carriers. Oil tankers, cruise lines should not be impacted by this.
Is there any indicators out there to suggest how long this may take? How much room is there between the two sides right now?
Well, the negotiations at the last minute were very helpful. The big issue had been that both sides weren't at the table. They were basically negotiating through press conferences and press releases. I think hopefully what we'll see is maybe toward the end of the week that both sides will come together. One of the big hindrances here is the Biden administration's hands-off approach. They have announced that they're not going to intercede. They really will not take a hands-on approach. The president himself came out and said there is no chance of him invoking taft-hartley, which would require workers to go back to work. And so this coming at a very, crucial time right now. We're looking at coming into the holiday season. There's last minute shipments that are coming in. This represents almost half the containers that come into the United States. And this has not just implications in the United States trade, but global trade.
We're looking at these live images from Elizabeth, New Jersey tonight. We understand that there's similar images coming in from major cities across the East and Gulf coasts. Sal, let's talk about the spectrum of situations and scenarios we could see play out over the coming days and weeks. Let's say this thing lasts 24 hours. What could that do to the supply chain versus what it could do if we're talking about a weeks-long strike?
Well, I think one of the things the viewers need to take away is there's not going to be shortages on the shelves. I mean, that's something they need to, be alleviated from. We're not going to see immediate shortfalls. What we're talking about is if this is a day, a short time period, it's going to take about a week to reset the supply chain to get caught back up. What you're going to see is delays happen in the delivery of goods. But for most people, they will not see anything appreciable happen in their consumption and the consumer goods. Where it starts to impact, if it starts going on a little bit longer than a day or two, or goes into a week or two, then manufacturing, a lot of businesses, one of the biggest importers, Walmart, the box stores, will start coming up short in some of their goods. Fortunately, most food is made within the United States. Most fuel is refined in the United States. So those type of things we don't really need to worry about or set off a panic. I think it's really important at this point that everyone takes a breath back and understand that a lot of the goods that you consume are already in the United States right now, sitting either in warehouses or in the stores.
It was what? Oh, and it looks like the battery level is low on that feed. That sometimes does happen with these live images. So, what I'll ask you though is it's been what, 3, 4 years since the supply chain was top of mind in the news cycle. We talked so much about it during COVID. Could the potential impacts of this type of strike feel similar to what we felt 3, 4 years ago?
I think one of the things we've seen continually is strains on the supply chain system. I mean, we've seen hits, whether it was the COVID supply chain system, it was Ever Given in the Suez, it was the Houthi now diverting vessels around the Red Sea. I think one of the things we've really learned is really how vulnerable our supply chain system is, how tenacious and tenuous it is at times. And what this is doing is really alerting us once again. Fortunately, again, the West Coast is open for business. We're going to get trade coming in, but the West Coast cannot take all the slack. We've got about a 50-50 division between the East and Gulf Coast ports and the West Coast. Fortunately, the Panama Canal is back up at full water level, so we can move traffic through there. Earlier this year, we had it at low levels. That was really hindering a lot of movement. But I think what the ILA wants to do is really grab the headlines here and really demonstrate their solidarity. One of the big fears is that they will be split apart and really become, just entities within local ports that can be dealt with on a local level, especially when you're dealing with these large shipping companies. The big 7 companies that are in the U.S. Maritime Alliance, there are 10 companies, shipping companies in the world. They control over 85% of the world's container shipping. And so the ILA really wants to show that this is their moment. I think it's coming at a very opportune time with an election looming on the horizon.
Did we learn anything from the pandemic that could help us weather this strike?
I think a lot of actually shippers have learned. They diversified where their cargo comes from. A lot of shippers were well aware this was coming. This is not a surprise. This has been a 6-year contract. Everyone saw this looming on the horizon. I think what we saw coming up here is a lot of shippers front loaded their cargo. So we had a lot of cargo coming in September. So the ports were really full. Hopefully, people were able to get the cargo out of those ports. And then others have shifted their cargo over to the West Coast. So we've diversified a bit in our ability to deliver goods. Crucial supplies, things like medicines and things that will have to be done can always be moved by air, but air traffic is a real premium right now because of issues caused by the Houthi and the elongation of shipping routes.
Where does this story go from here? What are you going to be watching for tomorrow? Could this thing come to an end quickly?
It can, that last little bit of offers by the U.S. Maritime Alliance was a pretty good deal. They were talking about going up to 50% in pay. I think what we'll see is hopefully you'll probably see a day or two of this news cycle with the strikes. They want to get on the news. They really want to highlight what's going on. But I would envision hopefully maybe by the end of the week, maybe Friday, we start seeing the sides coming down to the table negotiating, and they could hammer out a deal here. They're pretty close. One of the key provisions that the Maritime Alliance included in that most recent statement was that they were fine leaving the policy of automation and semi-automation the way it is. That's a big point for the ILA.
All right, the always informative Sal Mercogliano joining us late tonight. Sal, thanks for staying up late with us. Have a good rest of your night.